On our small blue world suspended in the vast silent ocean of the cosmos, time flows like a deep and patient river. Its currents have carved out epochs and eras, laying down layers of rock and memory, each one telling a story of a world that once was. We, in our fleeting moment, tend to see our own time as the most significant, our world as the definitive version of reality. But the Earth is ancient, and its memory is long. It remembers other worlds, other skies, and other masters. Long before the first human mind awoke to contemplate the stars, the Earth was the undisputed kingdom of giants. It was the planet of the dinosaurs. This is not a story of monsters and roaring battles. It is a quieter, more profound story. It is a meditation on deep time, a reflection on a dynasty of life that rose, flourished, and reigned for a period so immense it dwarfs the entirety of human history into a mere blink of an eye. It is the story of a planet breathing and changing, of continents drifting and climates shifting, and of the beautiful, terrible, and intricate dance between life and its environment. We will journey back to a world that is at once alien and strangely familiar, a world ruled by creatures of almost mythical proportion. We will explore their quiet beginnings, their magnificent reign, and their sudden, catastrophic fall. We will see them not as movie monsters, but as living, breathing animals, as integral parts of a global ecosystem, as expressions of life's boundless creativity. And in their story, we will find a mirror for our own, a story of dominance, of fragility, and of the silent cosmic forces that ultimately shape the destiny of all life on this pale blue dot. Let us now set aside our own time and drift back across the great ocean of the years to witness the rise and fall of a world that has been lost to all but the memory of the stone. Our story begins not with a birth, but with a recovery. To understand the world that would give rise to the dinosaurs, we must first journey back to a time before them, to the end of an era known as the Permian. Let us imagine the Earth as it was, some 252 million years ago. It is a world that would be almost unrecognizable to us. The familiar continents of our time do not exist. Instead, almost all of the planet's landmass is gathered into a single colossal supercontinent. Geologists call it Pangaea, meaning all Earth. This immense continent stretches from the South Pole to the North Pole, a single, unbroken sweep of rock and soil surrounded by a vast, solitary world, ocean known as Panthalassa, the All-Sea. Let us contemplate this world. The sheer scale of Pangaea creates a climate of extremes. The interior of the continent, thousands of kilometers from the moderating influence of the ocean, is a vast and punishing desert. It is a landscape of wind-scoured rock, shifting sand dunes and sprawling salt flats, baking under a relentless sun. Rain is a rare and fleeting event. Life here is hardy, sparse, and opportunistic, clinging to the edges of ephemeral salt lakes or sheltering in the shadow of rocky outcrops. The heart of Pangaea is a silent, empty, and inhospitable place. The coastlines, however, tell a different story. Here, the immense Panthalassa Ocean breathes moisture onto the land. The climate is dominated by powerful seasonal monsoons. For half the year, dry winds blow from the arid interior, bringing drought. For the other half, moisture-laden winds sweep in from the ocean, unleashing torrential, world-altering rains. These coastal regions are a world of dramatic cycles, of parched earth one season and raging floodwaters the next. This is the world that life has inherited. But this world is wounded. As the Permian period draws to a close, the planet is convulsed by a cataclysm. In a region we now call Siberia, the Earth's crust splits open, and for 2 million years, a relentless flood of lava pours out across the land. This is one of the largest volcanic events in our planet's history. The eruptions unleash a torrent of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, triggering a runaway global warming. The oceans, absorbing this CO2, become acidic and lose their oxygen. The result is the most severe extinction event in the history of life on Earth, the Permian Triassic extinction, often called the Great Dying. The statistics are staggering, but the reality is a quiet, creeping horror. Over 95% of all marine species and 70% of all terrestrial vertebrate species vanish from the fossil record. The vibrant, complex ecosystems of the Permian collapse. The world falls silent. The coral reefs, teeming with life, die and crumble. The great forests of giant tree-like ferns wither and rot. The dominant land animals of the time, the strange mammal-like reptiles known as synapsids, our own distant ancestors, are decimated. Life on Earth is very nearly extinguished. Our story begins in the aftermath of this silence. The early Triassic period is a strange and empty world. The planet is hot, the oceans are stagnant, and the land is a ghost of its former self. The intricate web of life has been torn apart, and the few survivors find themselves in a world of open niches and little competition. It's a time of profound ecological crisis, but it is also a time of immense opportunity. It is a blank canvas. The old rulers are gone, and the planet is waiting for a new dynasty to emerge. In this hot, empty world, the survivors begin the slow, patient work of rebuilding. Among them are a few hardy, adaptable reptiles. They are not yet the giants we imagine. They are small, unassuming creatures. Some are low-slung and sprawling, others are learning to stand more upright, to move more efficiently. They are scavengers and hunters of small prey, keeping to the shadows, surviving in a world that is still hostile and unpredictable. Among these survivors is a particular group of archosaurs, the ruling lizards. They possess a few key adaptations that will give them a crucial advantage in this new world. Their posture is more erect, with their legs positioned directly beneath their bodies, allowing for more efficient movement. Their respiratory system is uniquely effective, a one-way flow of air that allows them to extract more oxygen, a powerful advantage in the low-oxygen atmosphere of the early Triassic. These creatures are not yet dinosaurs. They are the precursors, the humble ancestors. They are living on a planet that is slowly healing. The volcanic winter has passed, and the Earth's climate is beginning to stabilize, albeit into a hot and arid state. The single continent of Pangaea, this vast unified stage, remains the setting for the next act of life's drama. It is a world of opportunity, a world waiting for a new blueprint for life to prove its worth. The great silent canvas of Pangaea is prepared. The survivors of the Great Dying are scattered across it like the first tentative brushstrokes of a new masterpiece. And among them, a new kind of reptile is quietly, patiently, waiting for its moment to rise. The age of dinosaurs has not yet begun, but the conditions for its dawn are now finally in place. The world after the Great Dying is a world of ghosts and opportunity. The silence left by the mass extinction is a vacuum, and nature in its patient, relentless way abhors a vacuum. The early and middle Triassic period, spanning from roughly 252 to 230 million years ago, is not a time of grand dynasties or established rulers. It is a time of chaotic, vibrant, and often strange experimentation. It is a planetary laboratory where evolution, working with the few hardy survivors, begins to tinker with new body plans, new ways of life, trying to discover what will work in this new, hotter and drier world. The stage is set for a quiet, protracted struggle for dominance, a biological contest to determine the future architects of life on Earth. The survivors of the Permian cataclysm are a motley crew. Among the most successful are the Lystrosaurs, a genus of our own distant relatives, the synapsids. These pig-sized, beaked herbivores are not glamorous, but they are incredibly resilient. In the immediate aftermath of the extinction, their fossils are found everywhere across Pangaea, from what is now South Africa to Russia to Antarctica. For a time, they are the most common land vertebrate on the planet, their herds digging for roots and tubers in the recovering scrubland. They are a symbol of survival, a testament to the power of being a generalist in a world where specialization has led to extinction. They represent the old guard, a final, brief flourishing of the mammal-like reptiles that had once ruled the Permian world. But they are not alone. The world is also home to a bewildering array of reptiles. There are strange, long-necked marine reptiles like the Tanistropheus, which stalked the coastlines using its impossibly long neck to snatch fish from the shallow waters of the Panthalassa Ocean. There are heavily armoured herbivorous reptiles called etosaurs, covered in bony plates like primitive crocodiles, rooting through the vegetation. And there are the Rauisuchians, a group of fearsome predators. These were the true kings of the Middle Triassic. Creatures like Postosuchus were apex predators, some reaching up to 6 meters in length, with powerful jaws and a semi-erect posture that made them faster and more formidable than the sprawling reptiles of the past. For millions of years, these were the creatures that dominated the landscape. And where, in all this strange menagerie, are the dinosaurs? They are there, but they are not yet the giants of our imagination. They are small, secondary players in the drama. The first true dinosaurs emerge around 230 million years ago, in the part of Pangaea that would one day become South America. Creatures like Eoraptor, the dawn plunderer, were small and nimble, no larger than a medium-sized dog. They were bipedal, running on two legs, which gave them speed and agility. They had sharp, serrated teeth, suggesting they were opportunistic carnivores and insectivores, hunting small lizards and insects, perhaps scavenging the kills of the larger Rauisuchians. They were not at the top of the food chain. They were living in the shadows of the ruling reptiles, surviving by being quick, adaptable, and unobtrusive. These early dinosaurs possessed a few key features that, while not immediately world-conquering, would prove to be decisive advantages in the long run. The most important was their fully erect, parasagittal stance. Their legs were positioned directly underneath their bodies, moving forwards and backwards like the pillars of a table, rather than sprawling out to the sides like a lizard's. This seemingly simple anatomical tweak was a revolution in locomotion. It allowed for far greater stamina and efficiency of movement. While a sprawling reptile has to wiggle its body from side to side to walk, compressing one lung at a time, a dinosaur could run while breathing easily, its legs moving independently of its torso. This made them more active, more energetic, and capable of covering greater distances. Furthermore, their respiratory system, inherited from their archosaur ancestors, was a model of efficiency. The one-way flow of air through a complex system of air sacs connected to their lungs meant that they could extract a much higher percentage of oxygen from every breath. In the relatively low oxygen atmosphere of the Triassic, this was a powerful hidden advantage. It fueled a higher metabolism, allowing them to be more active and to grow faster than their reptilian competitors. For millions of years, the Triassic experiment continued. The world was a patchwork of different ecosystems, each with its own cast of characters. The mammal-like synapsids, like the lystrosaurs, eventually faded, giving way to the first shrew-like mammals that would live in the shadows for the next 150 million years. The great Rauisuchian predators continued their reign, and all the while, the dinosaurs were quietly diversifying. They were a successful, but not a dominant group. They were biding their time. The planet was still hot and largely arid. But another global change was on the horizon. A series of climatic shifts at the end of the Triassic, possibly linked to another, smaller wave of volcanic activity, led to another extinction event. This event was not as devastating as the Great Dying, but it was selective. It proved to be the final undoing of many of the strange experimental reptiles, including the dominant Rauisuchians. The dinosaurs, with their efficient breathing and locomotion, were better equipped to survive the environmental stress. The slate was wiped clean once more. The great competitors were gone, the Triassic experiment was over, and the results were in. The future belonged to the dinosaurs. The dawn of the Jurassic period, 201 million years ago, marks a profound shift in the story of life on Earth. The minor extinction event that closed the Triassic had cleared the stage. The great Rauisuchian predators were gone, and the sprawling, less efficient reptiles had dwindled. The world that the dinosaurs inherited was one of open ecological niches, a world ripe for a new dynasty to establish its rule, and the dinosaurs, having weathered the storm, were perfectly poised to do so. It is in this early Jurassic world that we witness one of the most awe-inspiring developments in the history of life, the emergence of the first true giants. The path to gigantism was not a sudden leap, but a gradual evolutionary journey. The ancestors of the great sauropods, the long-necked giants of the Jurassic, were a group of dinosaurs known as prosauropods. These creatures, like Plateosaurus, first appeared in the late Triassic. They were not yet the mountain-sized animals of the later Jurassic, but they were, by the standards of their time, colossal. Plateosaurus could reach up to 10 meters in length and weigh several tons. They represented a radical new blueprint for a land animal. They were primarily bipedal, able to rear up on their hind legs to browse from tall trees, but they could also walk on all fours. They were the first high-browsing herbivores of any significance on the planet. The evolution of these first giants was a masterclass in biological engineering. To support such a massive weight, their skeletal structure had to be completely redesigned. Their legs became thick, strong pillars positioned directly under the body to efficiently transfer their immense weight to the ground. Their vertebrae developed complex hollowed-out structures, creating a spine that was both incredibly strong and remarkably lightweight, a principle of engineering that humans would not rediscover for millions of years in the construction of bridges and buildings. This combination of strength and lightness was crucial. It was the architectural foundation upon which gigantism could be built. Their metabolism, fueled by their hyper-efficient respiratory system, allowed for rapid growth. Fossil evidence suggests that these early giants grew at a pace more akin to modern birds than to reptiles, reaching their enormous size in just a couple of decades. This rapid growth was a powerful survival strategy. By growing big, fast, they could quickly outsize any potential predators, achieving a state of relative invulnerability as adults. A fully grown Plateosaurus had little to fear from the small carnivorous dinosaurs that shared its world. But being a giant herbivore presents a fundamental problem: how to consume enough food to power such a massive body. The prosauropods solved this with a simple, elegant strategy. They did not waste time chewing. Their small heads were equipped with simple peg-like teeth designed for one purpose: to strip leaves from branches as quickly as possible. They would have spent their days raking in vast quantities of vegetation, swallowing it whole. The real work of digestion was done in their enormous gut. Like a giant walking fermentation vat, their digestive tract would have been filled with symbiotic bacteria and churning stones, known as gastroliths, which they swallowed to help grind down the tough plant material. Their entire body plan was a testament to energy efficiency. A small head for intake, a long neck to reach a wide feeding envelope without moving the body, and a massive gut for processing. As the early Jurassic progressed, this successful blueprint was refined and exaggerated. The prosauropods gave way to the first true sauropods. These were creatures like Volcanodon and Barapasaurus. They had fully committed to a four-legged quadrupedal stance, their legs now resembling the massive pillars of a cathedral. Their necks grew longer, their bodies larger. They were the prototypes for the even more colossal giants that would come to dominate the Middle and Late Jurassic. The rise of these first giants had a profound effect on the planet itself. For the first time, there were animals that could consume entire forests. Their feeding habits would have shaped the landscape, clearing pathways through the vegetation, pruning tall trees, and creating open spaces that allowed for new types of plants to grow. They were not just inhabitants of their environment. They were its architects. Their immense size also meant they were a significant source of nutrients for the soil. Their droppings would have fertilized the land on an industrial scale, contributing to the lush green world that was beginning to flourish. This was a new kind of life, a new scale of existence on land. The emergence of these first giants was a declaration. It was a statement that the dinosaurs were not just survivors, they were innovators. They had developed a new and profoundly successful way of being, a blueprint for achieving a size and scale that had never before been seen on land. The Age of Giants had truly begun. The quiet, tentative experiments of the Triassic had given way to a bold and confident new era, an era where the Earth would tremble under the footsteps of the largest animals ever to walk its surface. The story of life on Earth is inextricably bound to the story of the Earth itself. Life is not an independent actor on a static stage. It is part of a dynamic and ever-changing system. The ground beneath our feet, which feels so solid and permanent, is in a state of constant slow-motion flux. The continents are adrift, floating on a sea of molten rock, their patient journey shaping the course of evolution over eons. As the Triassic gave way to the Jurassic, the single vast supercontinent of Pangaea, which had defined the planet for 100 million years, began to die. Its death was not a sudden event, but a slow, majestic and powerful process of fragmentation. This was the Great Rifting, a geological transformation that would fundamentally reshape the world and create the perfect conditions for the dinosaurs to flourish. Let us imagine the forces at work. Deep beneath the Earth's crust, in the molten mantle, great plumes of superheated rock were rising. These plumes, driven by the planet's internal heat engine, pushed up against the underside of the Pangaean landmass, stretching and thinning the crust. The immense continent, which had been a single, stable entity for so long, began to feel the strain. Cracks began to appear, deep fissures in the rock that would grow over millions of years into vast rift valleys. This was the beginning of the end for Pangaea. The process was not a gentle separation, but a violent and dramatic one, accompanied by immense volcanic activity. As the crust tore apart, magma from the mantle surged upwards, creating vast volcanic provinces and pouring floods of lava across the land. The first major split occurred between the northern and southern halves of Pangaea. A new body of water, the nascent Atlantic Ocean, began to form in the rift between what would become North America and Africa. At the same time, the southern portion of Pangaea, known as Gondwana, also began to fracture, with rifts appearing between Africa, South America, Antarctica, Australia, and India. The single world of Pangaea was breaking apart into a collection of smaller island continents. This was a process of immense geological power, a force that makes volcanic eruptions and earthquakes seem like minor tremors. It was the slow, inexorable breathing of the planet itself. This continental breakup had a profound and transformative effect on the global climate. The vast, arid desert that had characterized the interior of Pangaea began to shrink. As the continents drifted apart, new coastlines were created, and the moderating, moisture-bearing influence of the ocean could penetrate into regions that had been dry for millions of years. The extreme monsoon-like climate of the Pangaean coast gave way to more stable, more humid, and more predictable weather patterns. The formation of new seas and oceans created new pathways for global ocean currents, which began to distribute the sun's heat more evenly across the planet, leading to warmer and milder climates, even near the poles. The world was becoming a gentler, more hospitable place. The harsh, dry conditions that had favoured only the hardiest of creatures were being replaced by a world of warmth, moisture, and abundance. This change was the key that unlocked the full potential of the dinosaur dynasty. The arid scrublands and deserts of the Triassic began to retreat, and in their place, a new kind of global ecosystem began to spread. The Great Rifting was not just a geological event, it was a biological one. It was creating a new canvas for life, a canvas that was wetter, warmer, and greener. This process of continental drift also created new opportunities for evolution through isolation. As the continents separated, they carried their populations of dinosaurs with them. A single, widespread species could, over millions of years of isolation on separate land masses, evolve into several distinct new species, each one adapting to the unique conditions of its new island home. The breakup of Pangaea was a powerful engine of diversification. It ensured that the story of the dinosaurs would not be a monolithic one, but a rich and varied tapestry of different forms and adaptations, playing out on separate continental stages. A sauropod in what would become South America would evolve on a different path from its distant cousins in Africa. The world of the dinosaurs was becoming more complex, more regional, and more interesting. Contemplating this process is a meditation on the power of deep time. The movement of the continents is imperceptible to us, happening at a rate of only a few centimeters per year, the speed at which a fingernail grows. But over millions of years, these tiny movements accumulate to tear apart supercontinents, to raise mountain ranges, and to create oceans. It is a reminder that the most powerful forces that shape our world are often the slowest and most patient ones. The Great Rifting was a silent, geological revolution. It was the planet itself, in its slow, majestic motion, setting the stage for the golden age of the dinosaurs. It was breaking down the old unified world and creating a new, fragmented and far more vibrant one, a world perfectly suited for the reign of giants. The slow, tectonic death of Pangaea was the catalyst for a global rebirth. As the continents drifted apart and new oceans formed, the world's climate underwent a profound transformation. The harsh, arid conditions of the Triassic gave way to a long period of warmth, humidity, and climatic stability. This new world, the world of the Jurassic period, was a planetary greenhouse. There were likely no permanent polar ice caps, and temperate, forest-like conditions extended far into the Arctic and Antarctic circles. This global warmth and moisture, combined with high levels of atmospheric carbon dioxide, created the perfect conditions for a worldwide explosion of plant life. This was the Jurassic bloom, a planetary greening that turned the Earth into a veritable garden for the giants that walked upon it. Let us paint a picture of this verdant world. The flora of the Jurassic was very different from the flowering plants and deciduous trees that dominate our world today. It was a more ancient, more primitive kind of green. The landscape was dominated by vast forests of conifers, trees similar to modern pines, araucarias, and redwoods. These were the giants of the plant kingdom, soaring to great heights and forming dense, cathedral-like canopies that would have cast the forest floor in a perpetual dappled twilight. Beneath these giants, the understory was a thick, lush carpet of ferns. Ferns of all shapes and sizes would have covered the ground, their delicate fronds unfurling in the humid air. They would have choked the banks of slow-moving rivers and formed vast, open prairies of green in the spaces between the forests. The air would have been thick with the smell of damp earth, decaying vegetation, and the resinous scent of the great conifer trees. It was a world of 1,000 shades of green, a world of deep, quiet, and ancient forests. Alongside the conifers and ferns were other strange and beautiful plants. The cycads were particularly abundant. These plants, which still exist today, and are often mistaken for palms, have a short, stout trunk and a crown of stiff, leathery leaves. They would have formed a significant part of the Jurassic landscape, their unique geometric shapes adding to the alien beauty of the world. There were also the ginkgos, another ancient lineage of trees, their distinctive fan-shaped leaves a common sight. And there were the horsetails, giant bamboo-like plants that would have formed dense thickets in the wet, marshy lowlands. This global bloom of vegetation was the engine that powered the Jurassic ecosystem. It was an all-you-can-eat buffet for the great herbivorous dinosaurs. The sheer abundance of plant life was what made the evolution of the colossal sauropods possible. A single, fully grown Brachiosaurus would have needed to consume hundreds of kilograms of vegetation every single day just to survive. Such a lifestyle would have been impossible in the sparse, arid world of the Triassic. But in the lush green world of the Jurassic, it was not only possible, it was a highly successful strategy. The different types of plants also created different niches for different types of herbivores. The towering sauropods, with their incredibly long necks, were the high-browsers. They were the giraffes of their time, but on a scale that is almost unimaginable. They could graze from the tops of the tallest conifer trees, consuming foliage that was inaccessible to any other creature. This allowed them to avoid competing for food with the other herbivores that shared their world. Lower down, in the understory, lived the armored stegosaurs. With their small heads held low to the ground, they were perfectly adapted to feed on the low-growing ferns and cycads. Their simple, weak jaws suggest they fed on the softest, most succulent parts of the plants. They were the selective grazers, carefully choosing their meals from the forest floor. Other herbivores, like the bipedal Camptosaurus, were more versatile, able to rear up to feed on medium-height vegetation, occupying the middle tier of the ecosystem. This intricate layering of feeding strategies, made possible by the diversity of the Jurassic flora, allowed for a complex and stable ecosystem to develop. It was a world in balance. The immense productivity of the plant life supported a vast biomass of herbivores, which in turn supported a smaller, but no less impressive population of carnivorous predators. Contemplating this green world is a meditation on the interconnectedness of life and the environment. The slow drift of continents changed the climate. The changing climate allowed for a bloom of plant life. The bloom of plant life allowed for the evolution of giant herbivores, and the giant herbivores in turn shaped the landscape with their grazing, creating a constant dynamic interplay between the planet and its inhabitants. The Jurassic bloom was the foundation upon which the entire magnificent edifice of the dinosaurs' golden age was built. It was a quiet, green revolution that transformed the Earth into a paradise for the giants, a world of deep, silent forests and endless verdant plains, waiting for the tread of their colossal feet. The Jurassic world, lush and green, was a kingdom perfectly suited for the emergence of true giants. And among all the incredible creatures of this era, none capture the imagination quite like the sauropods. These were the gentle titans, the long-necked, plant-eating dinosaurs that grew to sizes that challenged the limits of biological possibility. Creatures like Brachiosaurus, Diplodocus, and Apatosaurus were not just animals. They were walking ecosystems, living mountains of flesh and bone. To contemplate them is to meditate on the profound nature of scale, and on a form of life so immense that it operated on a different rhythm, a different plane of existence from our own. Let us try to imagine one of these beings. Picture a brachiosaurus, standing in a clearing amidst a forest of towering conifers. Its front legs are longer than its back legs, giving its body a graceful upward slope. Its neck, like a colossal living crane, rises high into the sky, perhaps 15 meters above the ground. Its head, tiny in proportion to its immense body, is delicately plucking leaves from the treetops, a place no other creature on Earth can reach. The animal itself might be 25 meters long and weigh 50 tons, as much as a herd of elephants. It is a being of almost architectural proportions. The life of such a creature would have been one of slow, deliberate, and immense calm. Its sheer size would have been its primary defense. A healthy adult sauropod was simply too large, too massive to be troubled by the predators of its time, like Allosaurus. It was an island of safety in a dangerous world. This invulnerability would have lent its existence a profound sense of peace. Its days would have been spent in a quiet, meditative rhythm of eating and moving. It would move through the forest not with speed, but with an unstoppable, ponderous momentum. The ground would have trembled with each of its colossal footfalls, a deep, resonant drumbeat announcing the passage of a true titan. The sound of its breathing alone would have been like the slow, deep bellows of a great forge, a constant reminder of the immense metabolic engine required to power such a body. To stand in the presence of a sauropod would be to feel a sense of awe that borders on the spiritual. It would be like standing at the foot of a great cathedral or a mountain. Its scale reorients our own sense of importance. It is a living testament to the power of deep time and the boundless creativity of evolution. These were not monsters. They were serene, majestic herbivores. They were the ultimate expression of a successful life strategy. Grow so large that you transcend the daily struggle of predator and prey, and exist instead as a force of nature in your own right. Their herds would have moved across the landscape like a slow-motion river of life. A herd of Diplodocus, with their incredibly long whip-like tails held high above the ground, would have been a sight of breathtaking grandeur. Their collective movement would have reshaped the very landscape they inhabited. They would have carved broad pathways through the densest forests, creating clearings and open spaces that allowed sunlight to reach the forest floor, promoting new growth. Their immense appetites meant they were a crucial part of the planet's carbon cycle, consuming vast quantities of vegetation and returning nutrients to the soil on an industrial scale. They were not just living on the planet, they were actively participating in its great biogeochemical cycles. They were gardeners of the Jurassic world. Even their anatomy inspires a sense of wonder. Their vertebrae were not simple, solid bones. They were intricate, hollowed-out structures filled with air sacs connected to their respiratory system. This pneumatic skeleton was a marvel of biological engineering, providing immense strength with a fraction of the weight of solid bone. It was this adaptation that allowed their necks and tails to grow to such incredible, seemingly impossible lengths. Their long necks were not held stiffly upright like a giraffe's, but were likely held more horizontally, sweeping from side to side like a giant feeding boom, allowing them to graze on a huge area of low-growing vegetation without having to move their massive bodies. To contemplate the sauropods is to let go of our human-centric sense of time and scale. Their lives were lived on a different frequency. A single heartbeat might have taken many seconds. A single breath might have been a long, slow, tidal process. Their lifespan could have been a century or more, a long, slow journey through a world that was their undisputed kingdom. They were the quiet, gentle, and undisputed masters of the Jurassic, a peaceful dynasty of giants. Their fossils, now silent in the stone, are like the ruins of a lost civilization of titans, a quiet reminder of a time when life on Earth achieved a scale and a majesty that it has never reached since. While the great sauropods achieved safety through sheer, unassailable size, another group of Jurassic herbivores pursued a different, but no less profound, evolutionary path. These were the armored dinosaurs, the stegosaurs, and later the ankylosaurs. These creatures were not giants on the same scale as the sauropods, but they were formidable in their own right. They were living fortresses, walking castles of bone and horn. To contemplate them is to meditate on the philosophy of defense, on the idea of finding peace not through dominance or escape, but through a quiet, resolute, and impenetrable strength. They were the armored philosophers of the dinosaur world. Let us picture a Stegosaurus, moving slowly through a grove of ferns. It is a creature of strange and wonderful proportions. Its back arches high, and along its spine rises a double row of huge kite-shaped bony plates arranged in a staggered pattern. These plates, which were not directly attached to the skeleton but were embedded in the thick skin, are one of paleontology's great enigmas. They were too thin and fragile for effective defense against the powerful jaws of an Allosaurus. Instead, they may have served as a form of display, a way to attract a mate or to intimidate a rival. Or perhaps, laced with blood vessels, they acted as giant radiators, helping this large, cold-blooded animal to regulate its body temperature, absorbing the sun's heat in the cool morning and shedding it in the heat of the day. But if the plates were for show, the tail was most certainly for defense. At the end of its powerful, muscular tail were 4 long, sharp, bony spikes, a weapon that paleontologists have aptly named the thagomizer. This was a formidable and active defense. A Stegosaurus threatened by a predator would have likely turned its back, keeping its vulnerable head away from the danger, and swung its spiked tail like a medieval mace. Fossil evidence, including an Allosaurus vertebra with a puncture wound that perfectly matches a stegosaur spike, tells us that this was a weapon they used with deadly effectiveness. The life of a Stegosaurus would have been one of quiet, deliberate browsing. Its head was small, narrow, and held low to the ground, suggesting a diet of soft, low-growing vegetation like ferns and cycads. Its intelligence, judged by the famously small size of its brain cavity, was likely not its strong suit. But it did not need to be clever. Its life strategy was not based on outsmarting its opponents, but on simply being too difficult and dangerous to attack. It was a walking paradox, a peaceful, slow-moving herbivore equipped with a lethal weapon. It embodied the ancient principle of speak softly and carry a big stick. As we move from the Jurassic into the Cretaceous period, this philosophy of defense reached its ultimate expression in the ankylosaurs. If the Stegosaurus was a fortress, the Ankylosaurus was a living tank. Its entire back and head were covered in a thick fused pavement of bony plates, known as osteoderms, creating a nearly impenetrable shield of armour. Even its eyelids were made of bone. It was low to the ground, its short, stout legs making it incredibly stable and difficult to flip over. To a predator like Tyrannosaurus rex, an Ankylosaurus would have presented a frustrating and almost impossible challenge. It was a nearly featureless mound of armour, and like the Stegosaurus, the Ankylosaurus combined its passive armoured defence with a powerful active weapon. Its tail had evolved into a remarkable structure, a massive bony club formed from several fused vertebrae. This club, swung by powerful tail muscles, could have generated enough force to shatter the leg bones of an attacking T-Rex. The Ankylosaurus was the culmination of 100 million years of defensive evolution. It was one of the last and most successful of the non-avian dinosaurs, a testament to the power of its life strategy. To contemplate these armoured dinosaurs is to reflect on a different kind of strength. It is not the overwhelming strength of size like the sauropods, nor the aggressive strength of the great predators. It is a quiet, patient, and resilient strength. It is the strength of endurance, the strength of being able to withstand the pressures of the world. These creatures were the Stoics of their time. They moved through the world with a calm, unhurried confidence, secure in their own defense. They teach us that there are many ways to survive and to thrive. Sometimes the greatest power lies not in the ability to attack, but in the quiet, resolute strength to simply endure. Of course. Here are the next 2 chapters: The Tyrant Solitude, The Nature of an Apex, and The Social World, Herds, Nests, and Families, which explore the contrasting lives of the great predators and the social herbivores. Chapter 8: The Tyrant Solitude, The Nature of an Apex. In every ecosystem, in every era, there exists a creature that stands at the pinnacle of the food chain. It is the apex predator, the organism that knows no predator of its own. In the late Cretaceous period of North America, this position was held by a dinosaur whose very name means tyrant lizard king, Tyrannosaurus rex. Our culture has painted it as a roaring, relentless movie monster, a symbol of mindless ferocity. But if we approach this creature through the calm lens of the cosmos, we find a different story. We find not a monster, but a masterpiece of evolutionary engineering, a biological machine perfected for a single difficult purpose. And in its life, we can meditate on the profound and lonely nature of ultimate power. Let us imagine a Tyrannosaurus, standing motionless at the edge of a forest clearing at dusk. It is an animal of breathtaking power. Up to 12 meters long and weighing more than 8 tons, it is one of the largest terrestrial carnivores ever to have lived. Its most formidable feature is its head, a massive meter-and-a-half-long skull that is more than just a housing for its brain. It is a weapon. The skull is immensely strong, built to withstand colossal impact forces. Its jaws are powered by huge muscles that gave it the most powerful bite force of any land animal in Earth's history, capable of crushing the bones of its prey with an explosive force of several tons. Its teeth are not blades, but thick serrated spikes, like railway spikes, designed not for slicing but for puncturing and shattering bone. The life of a T-Rex would have been one dictated by an immense and constant hunger. Powering a body of this size and maintaining its active, warm-blooded metabolism required a colossal intake of calories. A Tyrannosaurus would have needed to consume hundreds of kilograms of meat on a regular basis. This was not a life of idle grazing, but a life of constant high-stakes effort. Every hunt was a gamble, a massive expenditure of energy that could result in injury or failure. A broken leg for a T-Rex would have been a death sentence. It would no longer be able to hunt and would slowly starve. This constant pressure, this thin line between a full belly and starvation, would have defined its existence. We often debate whether it was a hunter or a scavenger. The truth is likely that it was both, an opportunist like most large predators today. It was certainly built to hunt, with keen, forward-facing eyes that gave it excellent binocular vision and depth perception, a crucial tool for judging distance to its prey. Its brain had massive olfactory bulbs, suggesting a sense of smell so acute it could have detected carcasses from many kilometers away. It was a creature that could either bring down its own prey through a burst of terrifying speed and power, or intimidate any smaller predator away from a kill it had already made. It was the undisputed master of its domain. But what would it have felt like to be such a creature? To be the apex? It would have been a life of profound solitude. These were likely not social animals that lived in large cooperative packs. A territory that could support one adult T-Rex would have been vast, and they would have likely spent most of their lives alone, or perhaps in pairs during the mating season. The world would not have been a community of equals, but a landscape of potential food. The sight of a Tyrannosaurus would have sent waves of panic through the herds of Edmontosaurus or Triceratops. Its very presence would have altered the behavior of every other animal in the ecosystem. This is the nature of the apex. It is a lonely position. It is a life without peers, a life defined by its relationship not with equals but with its prey. There is a quiet, somber majesty in this. The Tyrannosaurus was not evil or cruel. It was simply fulfilling its role in the great moral calculus of the ecosystem. It was a balancing force, a check on the populations of the great herbivores, ensuring the health and stability of the entire system. It was as necessary to the health of the Cretaceous world as the herbivores it hunted. To contemplate the Tyrannosaurus is to reflect on the nature of power itself. Its existence was one of great physical power, but also one of great vulnerability and constant pressure. It was a life of lonely dominance, a solitary reign at the top of a world that has long since vanished. Its fossilized skeleton, now assembled in the quiet halls of a museum, is a silent monument to this concept. It is the ghost of a king, a quiet reminder that in the grand, impartial story of life, the role of the tyrant is as natural and as necessary as the role of the gentle herbivore it consumes. It is a meditation on the lonely, difficult, and magnificent business of being the ultimate power in one's world. While the great predators like Tyrannosaurus may have lived lives of solitary majesty, this was not the only way of being in the world of the dinosaurs. For many of the herbivorous species, the key to survival was not individual strength, but the power of the collective. The fossil record, a silent stone book of ancient lives, gives us beautiful and tantalizing glimpses into a world of complex social behaviors, of vast migrating herds, of carefully tended nests, and of the emergence of family and community. To explore this social world is to see dinosaurs not as lumbering, isolated reptiles, but as dynamic, interactive creatures, their lives enriched by the bonds of kinship and the safety of the group. let us journey to the great open floodplains of late Cretaceous North America. Here, the landscape is dominated by herds of the great hadrosaurs, or duck-billed dinosaurs, such as Edmontosaurus and Parasaurolophus. A herd of these animals would have been a magnificent sight, hundreds or even thousands of individuals moving together across the plains. The air would have been filled with their calls. The Parasaurolophus, with its long, hollow, trombone-like crest, could have produced deep, resonant notes that would have carried for kilometers, a form of long-distance communication to keep the herd together or to warn of danger. This was not a silent, mindless mass of animals, but a community, a moving city of dinosaurs. Living in a herd was a powerful defensive strategy. For a predator, a single isolated hadrosaur was a potential meal, but a herd of 1,000 individuals was a formidable and confusing challenge. The sheer number of eyes, ears, and noses meant that a predator would be spotted much more quickly. In the face of a threat, the herd could create a wall of confusion, a stampeding mass of bodies that would be dangerous for any predator to attack. There was safety in numbers, a collective strength that far surpassed the strength of any single individual. But the evidence for social behavior goes far beyond just the existence of herds. One of the most poignant discoveries in paleontology comes from a site in Montana nicknamed Egg Mountain. Here, researchers found the fossilized remains of a massive dinosaur nesting ground. The nests, belonging to a hadrosaur species called Maiasaura, the good mother lizard, were built in dense colonies, packed closely together like those of a modern seabird colony. They were carefully constructed bowl-like mounds of earth, each containing dozens of eggs laid in a neat circular pattern. But the most remarkable discovery was what was found inside the nests. Alongside the fossilized eggshells were the tiny skeletons of baby dinosaurs. Crucially, the teeth of these babies showed signs of wear, meaning they had been eating. But their leg joints were not yet fully formed, meaning they were not yet able to walk. This is a powerful, almost touching piece of evidence. It tells us that the baby Maiasaura were altricial. They were helpless at birth and remained in the nest where they were fed and cared for by their parents. This was not the lay them and leave them strategy of a modern sea turtle. This was active, prolonged parental care. We can imagine the scene. The nesting colony would have been a noisy, bustling, and perhaps smelly place. The adults would have been constantly coming and going, bringing back mouthfuls of vegetation to feed their hungry, chirping offspring. They would have stood guard over the nests, protecting their vulnerable young from the small predators that would have prowled the edges of the colony. This was the birth of the family, a social unit built on the bond between parent and child. It was a strategy that required immense investment of time and energy from the parents, but it gave their offspring a much greater chance of survival. This social complexity was not limited to the hadrosaurs. The horned dinosaurs, the ceratopsians like Triceratops, also show evidence of herding behavior. Great bone beds containing the jumbled remains of hundreds of individuals suggest that vast herds of these animals perished together, perhaps while trying to cross a flooded river during a migration. Their elaborate horns and frills, while useful as defensive weapons, were also likely used for social signaling, for display rituals to attract mates, for establishing dominance within the herd, and for recognizing members of their own species. To contemplate this social world is to feel a deeper connection to these ancient creatures. It bridges the immense gap of time that separates us. The drive to protect one's young, the instinct to find safety in a community, the need to communicate with one's peers, these are behaviors we recognize. They show us that the inner lives of these dinosaurs may have been far richer and more complex than we often imagine. They were not just mindless eating machines. They were parents, herdmates, and members of a society. Their world was not just a landscape of fear and survival, but a world of connection, of cooperation, and of family. For over 100 million years, the dinosaurs were the undisputed masters of the land. They had conquered every terrestrial niche, from the small, scurrying insectivores to the colossal, mountain-moving herbivores. But one vast realm remained largely beyond their reach: the sky. The air was a kingdom in its own right, an open frontier of wind and clouds, offering new sources of food, new highways for travel, and a perfect escape from the dangers of the world below. The story of how one branch of the dinosaur family tree evolved to conquer this realm is one of the most beautiful and revolutionary chapters in the history of life. It is the story of the feather and the profound, transformative miracle of flight. Our story begins not with a dramatic leap into the air, but with a small, simple and elegant structure, the feather. For a long time, we thought of feathers as being unique to birds and exclusively for flight. But the fossil discoveries of recent decades, particularly from the rich fossil beds of China, have completely overturned this idea. We now know that feathers were widespread among many different types of dinosaurs, especially the theropods, the group of two-legged carnivorous dinosaurs that includes Tyrannosaurus and Velociraptor. The first feathers were not the complex aerodynamic structures we see on a modern bird's wing. They were simple, hair-like filaments, a kind of soft, downy fuzz. Let us imagine a small feathered dinosaur, perhaps a Sinosauropteryx, scurrying through the undergrowth of a Jurassic forest. It is covered in a soft ginger-coloured pelt of these proto-feathers. It cannot fly. These simple feathers serve a different but no less vital purpose: insulation. Like the fur of a mammal, they trap a layer of air close to the body, helping this small, warm-blooded animal to maintain its body temperature. This was a crucial adaptation, allowing these dinosaurs to be more active in cooler temperatures and to thrive in a wider range of environments. The feather began its evolutionary journey not as a tool for flight, but as a blanket. From this simple beginning, the feather began to evolve in complexity. In other dinosaur species, we see the emergence of more complex branched feathers, and then feathers with a central stalk, or rachis similar to the contour feathers of a modern bird. These more elaborate feathers were likely used for display. We can imagine a dinosaur like Caudipteryx, with a fan of long striped feathers on its tail and shorter feathers on its arms, using them in a vibrant visual display to attract a mate or to intimidate a rival. The world of the dinosaurs may have been far more colourful and visually dynamic than we often picture it. The feather, before it was an airfoil, was an ornament. The final step was the evolution of the asymmetrical flight feather. This is the feather we see on the wing of a bird today, with a leading edge that is narrower and stiffer than the trailing edge. This shape is what creates an airfoil, the curved surface that generates lift when it moves through the air. We see these feathers on small raptor-like dinosaurs such as Microraptor. This creature had long asymmetrical feathers, not just on its arms but on its legs as well, creating a kind of biplane-like arrangement. It likely could not take off from the ground, but it was almost certainly a capable glider, climbing trees and launching itself into the air, gliding from branch to branch. This was the beginning of true flight. The most famous of these transitional fossils is, of course, Archaeopteryx. Living in the late Jurassic, this creature was a beautiful mosaic of dinosaur and bird. It had the feathered wings and wishbone of a bird, but it also had the sharp-toothed jaw, the long bony tail, and the clawed fingers of a small theropod dinosaur. It was a snapshot of evolution in action, a perfect link between two worlds. Whether it was a powerful, flapping flyer, or simply a glider, is still debated. But it represents the moment that the conquest of the air truly began. To contemplate this revolution is to meditate on the nature of evolutionary innovation. Flight did not appear overnight in a single brilliant leap. It was the culmination of a long, slow process of co-option and adaptation. A structure that first evolved for warmth, insulation, was later co-opted for communication, display, and then finally its potential for interacting with the air was unlocked, leading to gliding and eventually to powered flight. It is a beautiful example of how evolution tinkers, repurposing existing structures for entirely new and wonderful functions. The sky of the late Cretaceous would have been a different place from the sky of the Jurassic. It would have been filled with a growing diversity of true birds, their chirps and calls adding a new layer to the planet's soundscape. They were the inheritors of the feathered revolution, the direct descendants of the dinosaurs. And when the great cataclysm came that would wipe out their giant relatives, these small feathered flyers would be among the few to survive. Their ability to fly allowed them to cross devastated landscapes and find pockets of safety, ensuring that the legacy of the dinosaurs would not be entirely erased. The conquest of the air was not just a beautiful chapter in the dinosaur story, it was the key to their survival, in a new and delicate form, into our own time. While the dinosaurs were engaged in their 150 million year reign on land, a parallel and equally magnificent drama was unfolding in the great oceans of the world. The warm, shallow seas of the Mesozoic era were not empty. They were home to another dynasty of giants, a diverse and formidable collection of marine reptiles that, while not dinosaurs, were every bit as awe-inspiring. To leave the land and sink beneath the waves of the Cretaceous Sea is to enter another world, a serene, blue, three-dimensional realm ruled by a different cast of titans. Let us imagine ourselves floating in the warm, sunlit waters of the Western Interior Seaway, a vast, shallow ocean that once split the continent of North America in two. The water is clear, and shafts of sunlight dance in the depths. Below us, a school of shimmering fish, 1,000 strong, moves as one, but our attention is drawn to a larger shape, moving with a slow, graceful, and powerful rhythm. It is a plesiosaur, a creature of almost mythical design. It has a broad, turtle-like body and 4 large, powerful flippers that it uses to fly through the water, just as a penguin or a sea lion does today. But its most striking feature is its neck, an impossibly long and slender serpent-like structure, topped with a small head filled with sharp, interlocking teeth. The plesiosaur is not a fast swimmer. It is a stealthy ambush predator. It would move slowly through the water, its large body remaining in the deeper, darker water, while its long neck allowed its head to dart into a school of fish or ammonites, snatching its prey before they were even aware of the danger. The life of a plesiosaur was one of patient, quiet hunting, a life of graceful, silent movement in the endless blue. They were the sea dragons of the Cretaceous, a beautiful and bizarre expression of life's creativity. But the seas were also home to more direct and powerful hunters. A shadow falls over us, and we look up to see the undisputed apex predator of the Cretaceous seas, a mosasaur. This is not a graceful dancer, but a creature of raw power. Imagine a Komodo dragon, but scaled up to the size of a whale, with its legs transformed into flippers and its tail flattened into a powerful shark-like fluke. The mosasaur was a true marine lizard, a close relative of modern monitor lizards. They could grow to immense sizes, with some species like Mosasaurus hoffmanii reaching over 15 meters in length. The mosasaur was a brute force predator. It swam with powerful serpentine motions of its body and tail, capable of great bursts of speed to ambush its prey. Its skull was double-hinged, like a snake's, allowing it to open its mouth incredibly wide and swallow very large prey whole. Its diet was anything it wanted it to be: large fish, sea turtles, plesiosaurs, and even other smaller mosasaurs. They were the T-Rex of the sea, the ultimate expression of power in the marine realm. Their existence would have filled the upper layers of the ocean with a sense of constant, imminent danger. Yet, even in this world of powerful reptiles, there were gentle giants. We might see a huge placid archelon, the largest sea turtle that has ever lived. With a shell over 4 meters long, it would have drifted serenely through the water, its great leathery carapace protecting it from all but the largest of mosasaurs. It would have paddled slowly with its enormous front flippers, its beak-like mouth perfectly suited for feeding on the soft-bodied jellyfish and squid that filled the seas. To contemplate this underwater world is to appreciate the sheer diversity of Mesozoic life. The rule of the reptiles was not confined to the land. They had conquered the oceans as well, adapting to a marine existence in a multitude of different ways. The serene, sunlit world of the shallow seas was a complete and complex ecosystem, with its own herbivores, its own mid-level predators, and its own undisputed apex hunters. It was a world parallel to the world of the dinosaurs, a separate kingdom with its own dynasties and its own epic stories. And like the dinosaurs, their reign, for all its power and magnificence, was destined to come to a sudden and catastrophic end. Their world to be undone by the same messenger from the cosmos that would bring down their terrestrial cousins. Let us now leave the Earth behind. Let us pull our perspective away from the warm, blue oceans and the green, living continents. Let us rise through the thin veil of the atmosphere and drift into the silent, cold and profound emptiness of interplanetary space. From here, the Earth is a beautiful marbled jewel, a vibrant oasis of life in an immense and sterile darkness. The dramas of the dinosaurs, the hunts of the mosasaurs, the entire intricate web of life all play out on this tiny, fragile stage. But the universe is vast and it is not empty. It is filled with ancient wandering objects, remnants from the birth of the solar system, following their own silent, patient paths, governed by the simple, unwavering laws of gravity. Our story now shifts to one such object, a messenger from the void. Imagine a single, solitary asteroid. It is a mountain of rock and metal, roughly 10 kilometers in diameter. It is not a perfect sphere, but a jagged, irregular, and cratered object. A dark, silent testament to billions of years of cosmic history. It was born in the asteroid belt, the great reservoir of planetary debris that lies between the orbits of Mars and Jupiter. For eons, it orbited the Sun in a stable, predictable path, one among millions of its kind. But the solar system is a dynamic, gravitational dance, a subtle nudge from the immense gravity of Jupiter, a close pass by another large asteroid, a chance alignment of planets. Something, at some point in the distant past, altered its orbit. It was knocked from its stable path and sent on a new elliptical journey, a journey that would now cross the orbit of the inner planets, including Earth. Let us follow this messenger on the final leg of its long journey. For thousands, perhaps millions of years, it has been travelling on this new path. It is a journey of profound solitude and silence. In the vacuum of space, there is no sound, no friction, no resistance. The asteroid moves with a pure mathematical grace, its trajectory dictated solely by the gravitational pull of the Sun and the distant, subtle tugs of the planets. It is a world in itself. Its surface is a landscape of craters within craters, a record of countless smaller impacts it has endured over its long life. It is covered in a fine layer of dust or regolith, and its temperature swings wildly from hundreds of degrees on its sunlit side to deep cryogenic cold on its dark side. It is completely, utterly indifferent. It has no malice, no intent. It is not a villain in our story. It is a neutral agent of cosmic change, a piece of primordial matter following its prescribed path. It is no more evil than a falling rock or a breaking wave. It is simply a part of the universe, a universe that operates on principles of physics, not morality. As it travels, it silently tumbles, rotating slowly, its jagged shadow sweeping across the stars. It passes the orbit of Mars, its path now curving more sharply as it falls deeper into the Sun's gravitational well. It is accelerating, gathering speed for its final, fateful appointment. From the perspective of the dinosaurs on Earth, the sky is a familiar and predictable place. It is filled with the sun, the moon, and the steady twinkling points of light that are the stars. Perhaps they notice the occasional fleeting streak of a meteor, a tiny grain of dust burning up in the atmosphere. But they have no concept of the vast three-dimensional space beyond their sky. They have no knowledge of the silent wandering mountains of rock that share their solar system. They are unaware that one such mountain is now on a collision course with their world. In the final days of its journey, the messenger would become visible from Earth. At first, it would be just another point of light in the night sky, perhaps mistaken for a new star. But unlike the stars, it would be moving. Night after night, it would grow brighter and travel faster across the constellations. Any creature with the capacity to observe and record its position would have realized that this was something new, something different. In the final hours, it would be a terrifying and brilliant object, visible even in the daylight, a second, smaller sun blazing in the sky. It would be a sign, a portent, an unheeded warning from the cosmos. But there was no one on Earth who could understand what it meant. There were no astronomers to calculate its trajectory, no physicists to comprehend its immense energy. There was only a world of magnificent, unknowing creatures living out the final moments of their 150 million year reign, unaware that the sky was quite literally about to fall. The journey of the messenger is over. After an eon of silent travel through the void, it has arrived at its destination. The final moment is not a slow collision, but an almost instantaneous event of unimaginable violence, a moment that will forever divide the history of life on Earth into a before and an after. Let us try to witness this moment, not with a sense of terror, but with the detached observational calm of a physicist, for this is a story of pure energy and motion. The asteroid, 10 kilometers wide and travelling at a speed of perhaps 20 kilometers per second, enters the Earth's upper atmosphere. For a brief instant, the air itself becomes a source of immense friction, compressing and heating in front of the asteroid into a blindingly brilliant plasma hotter than the surface of the Sun. But the asteroid is too large, too massive, and moving too fast for the atmosphere to have any significant effect. It is not a meteor that will burn up, it is a projectile that will strike its target. It strikes the shallow sea of what is now the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. The moment of impact is a moment of pure energy conversion. The colossal kinetic energy of the asteroid, the energy of a mountain moving at hypersonic speed, is instantaneously transformed into an explosive blast of heat and light. The energy released is staggering, equivalent to more than 1 billion of the most powerful nuclear bombs ever created. It is the single most violent event to occur on the surface of the Earth in the last 500 million years. In the first fraction of a second, the asteroid and a huge volume of the Earth's crust beneath it are vaporized, creating a rapidly expanding fireball of superheated rock gas. This fireball blasts a transient crater in the Earth's crust over 100 kilometers wide and 30 kilometers deep. The impact site itself, and everything for hundreds of kilometers around it, is utterly annihilated, ceasing to exist in a flash of incandescent light. From this point of impact, a series of devastating effects propagate outwards across the globe. The first is the shock wave, a seismic wave of unimaginable power, a global earthquake thousands of times stronger than any ever recorded by humans, radiates out from the impact site through the planet's crust. This wave would have triggered volcanic eruptions and earthquakes on the opposite side of the planet. The ground itself would have rippled and buckled. The second effect is the blast wave in the atmosphere. A wall of super-pressurized air, moving faster than the speed of sound, would have flattened everything in its path for a radius of over 1,000 kilometers, scouring the landscape clean. But even this was a localized effect compared to what came next. The impact threw a colossal amount of molten and vaporized rock high above the atmosphere on ballistic trajectories that would take them all across the globe, as these tiny droplets of molten rock called spherules rained back down through the atmosphere all over the world. Their friction heated the air to oven-like temperatures. For several hours, the entire sky of the planet would have glowed a dull, deadly red. The surface temperature would have risen by hundreds of degrees, high enough to spontaneously ignite global wildfires. Any animal not sheltered underground or in deep water would have been baked alive. The impact in the shallow sea also generated a mega tsunami of almost unimaginable height. A wave perhaps hundreds of meters high would have radiated out from the impact site, scouring the coastlines of the Gulf of Mexico and travelling far inland, a wall of water carrying destruction with it. But the most profound and long-lasting effect was what the impact threw up into the sky. A vast, thick plume of pulverized rock, dust and soot from the global wildfires was blasted into the stratosphere. This cloud, thicker and more persistent than any volcanic ash cloud, rapidly spread, enveloping the entire planet in a dark, impenetrable shroud. The sun, the source of all energy for life on Earth, was blocked out. The day the sky fell was followed by a long and terrible night. The moment of fiery, violent change was over. Now began the slow, cold and quiet aftermath. A planetary winter that would bring the magnificent 150 million year reign of the dinosaurs to a final, silent close. The world had been irrevocably, fundamentally and catastrophically changed in a single terrible moment. Of course, here are the final 2 chapters of our story: The Long Cold Night, A Planet in Hibernation, and The Inheritance, Echoes and Beginnings, which will bring this cosmic and planetary tale to its conclusion. Chapter 14, The Long Cold Night, A Planet in Hibernation. The fire has passed. The initial violent fury of the impact is over. The earthquakes have subsided, and the mega tsunamis have retreated, leaving behind a coastline scarred and rearranged. Now, a new and more insidious phase of the extinction begins. It is not a phase of explosive violence, but of a deep, pervasive, and deathly quiet. The vast cloud of dust, soot, and vaporized rock from the impact has spread through the stratosphere, wrapping the entire planet in a thick, dark blanket. The sun is gone. A deep, perpetual twilight, or perhaps even a near-total darkness, falls over the face of the Earth. This is the beginning of the impact winter, a long cold night that will last for years, and it will be this slow, creeping environmental collapse that delivers the final blow to the dinosaurs' world. Let us contemplate this darkened planet. With the sun's light blocked, the primary engine of life on Earth sputters and dies. Photosynthesis, the magical process by which plants convert sunlight into energy, ceases almost completely. The great green world of the Cretaceous begins to wither and die. The phytoplankton in the oceans, the foundation of the entire marine food web, perish in the darkness. The vast conifer forests, the lush fern prairies, the flowering plants, all begin to decay and rot in the cold and the dark. The planet's vibrant green hue fades to a sickly brown. The world is starving. For the great herbivorous dinosaurs, this is a death sentence. The sauropods, the hadrosaurs, the ceratopsians, their entire existence was predicated on the availability of immense quantities of fresh vegetation. In a world where the plants are dying, their food source vanishes. These magnificent creatures, who had survived and thrived for millions of years, now face a slow, inexorable starvation. The giants are the first to fall. Their immense bodies required a colossal intake of energy, and in a world without it they are the most vulnerable. One by one the great herds dwindle and disappear, their colossal skeletons coming to rest in a silent, dying world. With the death of the herbivores, the great carnivorous dinosaurs, including the mighty Tyrannosaurus rex, are also doomed. Their food source is gone. For a time they might have survived by scavenging the carcasses of the dead herbivores, but this is a temporary reprieve. Soon, they too succumb to the great famine. The tyrant king, the apex of 100 million years of predatory evolution, is brought down not by a mightier foe, but by the simple, brutal reality of an empty stomach. The roars of the great predators fade from the landscape, replaced by a profound and final silence. The world grows cold. Without the warming rays of the sun, global temperatures plummet. The warm greenhouse climate of the Cretaceous is replaced by a harsh, freezing winter that lasts for years. The oceans, once warm and teeming with life, become cold and acidic from the chemical reactions in the atmosphere. The great marine reptiles, the mosasaurs and the plesiosaurs, who had ruled the seas, also perish. Their world, like the world on land, has collapsed from the bottom up. The death of the phytoplankton means the death of the creatures that fed on them, which in turn means the death of the great predators at the top of the marine food chain. This long, cold night is a great filter, an event that scours the planet of all that is large, specialized, and energy-intensive. But life, in its tenacious and humble way, endures. The survivors of this global catastrophe are not the strong and the mighty, but the small, the adaptable, and the unassuming. They are the creatures that can hide, the creatures that can wait, the creatures that do not need much to survive. In the soil and the leaf litter, detritivores, creatures that feed on decaying organic matter, thrive. The world is now filled with dead plants and animals, a feast for fungi, insects, and worms. Small, semi-aquatic animals like crocodiles, turtles, and amphibians living in rivers and lakes are better able to survive. Their freshwater ecosystems, fed by the decay